Home Secretary, thank you so much for joining me here on LBC tonight. You've described today's announcement as the biggest immigration reforms in a generation. There's obviously lots of radical changes in that. More than 20 Labour MPs so far have spoken out in the hours since you've announced it. Are you confident Labour MPs will back this?
Yes, I am, because as I was making my statement in the House today, it was clear that a majority of my colleagues were supportive of the proposals and understand the need for these changes. And look, I think politics is about making an argument, and that is what I was doing in the House today as I introduced these reforms in Parliament. Not everyone will agree, I accept that, but I think the majority will, and I think that was what was clear today. And I think the reason the majority will agree is because they can see that this is a broken system. It is dividing people across our country, and because they know how vital it is that we make these changes so that we can retain public support for having an asylum system at all. I know the British people are generous, open and tolerant. I want to make sure that we unlock the full extent of that openness and tolerance and generosity, and we will do that by having a system that has order and control at its heart, and that then enables us to grow and bring more people in through safe and legal routes into this country.
Home Secretary, your MPs are really angry. Nadia Whittome says the government's pursuing the policy of the far right. Simon Offer says we should push back on the racist agenda of reform. Why are they wrong and why are you right?
Well, look, what I would say to my colleagues is, firstly, I accept that not everybody will agree with these proposals, but I have not thought for a minute about what any other political party is doing or what any other politician has to say about any of these matters. I'm the Home Secretary of this country. I can see a broken system. When people complain to me about the asylum system, they're not indulging in fake news. They haven't read some misinformation on social media that's got in their head and now they're spouting some nonsense. What they're complaining about is a very real thing. It is a broken system. I've seen it myself. My constituents have been telling me about it for years. I can see the system is dividing people in our country. So it's my job as a Home Secretary to come up with solutions that will fix this broken system, retain order and control, and then also build support for the true compassion of the British people to be unleashed by opening up new safe and legal routes. So what I'd say to my colleagues is, look at the totality of the reforms. These are reforms that are underpinned by Labour values of fairness and contribution. They're British values as well. That's why I believe the country can get behind these reforms. But they also have compassion at the heart, because we want to disincentivise people getting on a boat in the north of France, and we want to incentivise people coming through new safe and legal routes instead.
Earlier you were talking about taking the jewellery away from asylum seekers. It seems like you've slightly rode back on that one today. Is that cruel? Is that a step too far, taking away people's jewellery?
No, we were never going to take jewellery away from people at the border or seize assets
that was briefed to
at the border.
yesterday.
That is not the policy position of myself or the party. What we have said is, where people have assets and high value assets and can make a contribution to the asylum accommodation that they are receiving, they should do so. And the example I used in my speech in the House today is the case that I have in mind in making these changes. We had a case where a man was receiving £800 a month in income from his family. He also had enough money to acquire an Audi, and yet he was receiving free asylum accommodation whilst his claim was waiting to be heard. It cannot be right that people who are able to contribute to the cost of their asylum accommodation do not do so, right? So I think it is absolutely fair and proper. British citizens, by the way, when they have assets, can't unlock benefits and access to the benefit system in this country. So I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that people who do have high value assets make that contribution, but this has never been about seizing jewellery or indeed anything else at the border. This is about taking an assessment of assets later down the track so that if people are receiving free accommodation, they are able to contribute to it.
We know that Labour MPs have had the potential to force the government into U-turns. We saw it with welfare, we saw it with Interfuel. What do you think the potential impact could be if you were forced to back down on some of these measures which you've announced today?
Well, I don't believe that will be the case, because I think what we saw in the House today was broad support from my colleagues across the Parliamentary Labour Party for these reforms, for the necessity of these reforms, for the substance of these reforms, and for the absolute critical need to deliver for the British people. That is what my colleagues, the vast majority of my colleagues, were talking about today. As I said, not everybody will always agree, but there is broad support for these reforms in the Labour Party, and that is why I believe that they will be realised.
36,000 people have crossed the Channel so far this year. What does success for this policy look like? Down to zero, down to 10,000?
Well, look, I want to reduce those numbers as quickly as possible. I haven't given targets because I know that a lot of people will feel very cynical about the asylum system because they will think we've heard all of this before. And I want to just prove that we can do this. And I would ask people to just judge us on our record, give us a chance to get these reforms through and implemented and ultimately taking effect across the country.
So no timetable on if that will ever come down to zero?
Look, we've said, for example, that we're going to get out of asylum hotels by the end of the Parliament. I want to bring that forward. I obviously want to decrease the number of people getting into boats in the Channel and coming to the country this way. The reforms will take some time because they need to go through primary legislation. We will need to pass laws in order to get them done, and then they will need to be implemented. All I say to people is give us a chance to turn this around and to fix this system, and then ultimately judge us on our record.
You want to restart returns to Syria. The Foreign Office says that's still an unsafe country. How can you justify sending people back there?
Well, look, I think the situation in Syria has changed, so we're just recognising that the conflict there has come to an end. Well, some voluntary returns have already taken place to Syria, and other countries are starting to consider enforced removal, and we have said that we will do so as well. We will obviously respond to the situation on the ground, but it is right that when a situation changes in a country that we also are able to start returning people to it.
You spoke earlier in the Commons about racism. You spoke about being called yourself an effing P word and told to go home. Can I ask you how that made you feel?
Well, it's horrible to be subject to racism. It's not new. There's a bit more of it around these days than there used to be, unfortunately. But what I'm reflecting is not just my personal experience, it's that of my family and many of my constituents.
Do you think it's
as
getting
well.
worse?
I can only tell you what my own constituents tell me. I mean, as a constituency MP, I regularly hear from people in my own patch how worried they are about their safety and security in their own country and how they can see this issue of asylum and migration more broadly causing division in our communities. It's why, as a constituency member of Parliament, as somebody who's the child of migrants herself, immigration is woven into my family's story. It's a story of how we came to Britain. It's why it's so important to me and such a moral mission for me that we fix this broken system.
And finally, Home Secretary, obviously it's been a difficult week for the Prime Minister. We've got a difficult budget coming up. Some Labour MPs would love to see you take on the job as Labour leader. Would you ever like to have it?
Look, I have never, and I never will indulge in these sorts of Westminster knockabout hypotheticals. The Prime Minister has my full support. The Prime Minister and the Chancellor have my full support as we go into that budget period. And I'm a proud member of a Labour government under Keir Starmer.
Thank you so much for joining me, Home Secretary.
Thank you.